Today we're going to be talking about all the backstops in Major League Baseball. So that means we're going to go through all 30 of the MLB stadiums. And just for a bit of transparency, all the screen grabs I have for this video are from 2024. And since the 2025 season has not started yet as I'm making this video, some of the backstops are subject to change a little bit, but I doubt many of them will change all that much. And the first backstop we're going to look at is the Arizona Diamondbacks. Now, I don't think they've changed this at all since the ballpark opened in 1998. To me, it's pretty standard. A lot of stadiums kind of look like this. Arizona is slightly different because to the left, it has like the normal look of any backstop and any crowd, but to the middle and to the right, it has more of a field level view, which was pretty unique for the time back in 98 when the stadium was built. Like I said, there's nothing too weird or distracting, so I think this backstop can heartily go in the average category. Next up is the LA Dodgers, and I gotta say, for a very old ballpark, the backstop for the Dodgers is pretty lackluster. It's just your standard padding backstop with ads on it. Now, I know this backstop area has been renovated a number of times over the last, 60 years or so, but even with that said, they've never done much with it. It's just pretty bland, and I'm not all that in awe of it. Now, the crowd behind home plate is never all that distracting. Still, the backstop itself is not that inspiring, and I think the Dodgers backstop lands kind of in the average category. Next up is the Padres, and it's another one that feels pretty average. It does have the digital ad boards, I don't know what else to call them, behind home plate, but other than that is just your standard padding, and the crowd does feel quite close to the action at Petco Park compared to some other stadiums. So I like that very tight feel. It feels like the crowd is on top of you. So with that said, I think the Padres will go right in the average category also. And rounding out the NL West is the San Francisco Giants. Now, I'm really surprised because the Giants have a lot of brick incorporated throughout this entire ballpark, why they did not put brick behind home plate. Now, there may be some out of view of the camera. I can't remember off the top of my head right now. But regardless, this is just the most basic average backstop you're ever going to find in baseball. Same thing for the crowd behind the backstop. There's nothing impressive about this. It's just pretty boring, pretty average, and that's all that it is. Whoops, it looks like I forgot the Colorado Rockies. Now, the Rockies have a pretty decent backstop. I like the little incorporation of brick where it says Coors Field, even though it's mainly just ads behind there with the padding. And the crowd's not too bad, but one thing I really dislike about Coors Field is right in the middle of the crowd is right where people enter and exit. For whatever reason, the Rockies don't hold people up from entering and exiting during the middle of an inning. So I find it very distracting that people are always moving in the middle of the aisleways and entering and exiting through the middle of the area to get to their seats. It's very distracting, and they don't ever stop anyone. Like, I know some other ballparks kind of have this set up kind of, and at least they hold people for the half inning. But either way, I think it's pretty good, but due to that reason, I find it incredibly distracting. I'm going to have to put it in the bad category just for that reason. Now, the first team for the NL Central is the Milwaukee Brewers. Now, they're another team that really relies on the digital ad space for their backstop, and it doesn't look horrible, it doesn't look great. It's kind of your average backstop for a 2000 stadium. And it seems like most broadcasts for the Brewers, you don't see much of the crowd, so you just see a lot of the backstop. And it's not a horrible backstop by any means or anything like that, but it just is incredibly average, so it's going in the average category. Next up is the Pirates and PNC Park. Now, this is a stadium I really do like. I think they have a nice backstop, even though a lot of it is ads. I do like their incorporation of stone. I don't know exactly what type of stone that is, but I do think it looks good. It is going in the good category. Now, Busch Stadium is a pretty good looking backstop, I gotta say. I like the brick. I think it looks good. It has a lot of digital ad space, no padding, shockingly enough. So I think that makes it look a bit better. My biggest complaint about Cardinals games, even though this isn't even part of our category here, the camera angle always feels very far away for Cardinal games, and I don't know why they do that. Zoom up a little bit. Every other team does. But either way, we're judging the backstop in this video, and I think it's a pretty good one. The crowd has good areas to enter and exit. That's not too distracting, so I'm going to put this in the good category. The Chicago Cubs and Wrigley Field has a lot of the things I like. A lot of brick, no padding, limited ad space, but how their backstop is not centered with home plate drives me crazy. Now, I know they did this back in the day for a renovation that happened, again, years and years ago. But in saying that, when they practically redid all of Wrigley Field, 10 years ago, why didn't they fix this problem? Why didn't they center the backstop with home plate? It drives me crazy, especially if you're a fan sitting kind of towards the left of the screen. You're always gonna have to turn your head to see the action. You're not ever straight on. You're paying gobs of money to sit there, and you're gonna be uncomfortable the whole time. Does not sound fun. So even though I do like a lot of what Wrigley has going on, it not being centered centered puts it in the bad category for me. Great American Ballpark features a lot of ad space, a lot of padding, minimal brick, which is unfortunate, but in saying that, the Reds backstop is not bad by any means. There's nothing too distracting with the crowd. It's just very 2000s. That's the best way I can describe this, because there's a lot of ballparks that were built in this era that have these same exact backstops. So there's nothing offensive about it, but I'm still going to put it in the average category. Now kicking off the NL East is Truist Park, and the Braves did it pretty good here with their new ballpark. A lot of brick, minimal ad space, a crowd that's not too distracting. The seats for the crowd look very comfortable, so I'm going to put the Braves in the good category. Next up is Lone Depot Park for the Miami Marlins, and they went from having one of the most unique backstops you're ever going to find with an actual fish tank to having just one of the most basic backstops you're ever going to find. It is just ads and padding. That's it. The crowd is unoffensive. They look like normal seats behind home plate. Nothing too distracting, but at the same time, you went from being very unique, very interesting. So for that reason, the Marlins, you go in the bad category. Now, Citizens Bank Park for the Philadelphia Phillies is a pretty good backstop. Has a lot of brick, has a lot of padding, some giant ads, and it is kind of tiered in a way, the best I can describe it. The crowd seems pretty close to the action, but in saying that, it just feels like your average 2000s backstop, even with the brick. So Phillies, you're another one to the average category. Citi Field for the Mets is a pretty decent backstop. I like how they feature brick and they feature concrete on top of the brick. I know some other stadiums have done that too that we talked about. I just haven't brought it up. It's a pretty timeless look, even though there is a lot of ad space going on back there, which is unfortunate. If it was kind of flipped the other way, I'd be a lot more impressed. The seats seem pretty normal back there. So even with incorporation of brick, kind of like the Phillies, I'm going to put the Mets in the average category. Last up for the NL East is the Washington Nationals, formerly known as Nationals Park. They are looking for an ad sponsor currently, so we'll see what it's called for 2025. But the Nationals have one of the more unique backstops you're going to find. It features, again, I think it's slate. I think it's very unique. It looks cool. And they only have one digital ad board with one other ad area, so I do really appreciate that. The crowd area seems pretty normal, but due to the Nationals having a unique backstop, I'm going to put it in the good category. Now getting into the American League, we have Minute Maid Park for the Houston Astros. Now for Minute Maid Park having a lot of cool features, their backstop is not one of them. It is a very basic, boring, mid-2000s backstop. A lot of padding, a lot of ads, average crowd behind the backstop. So Astros, you go in the average category. Next up is the Texas Rangers, and by far, without a doubt, they have the worst backstop in all of Major League Baseball. I don't know who thought this was a good idea, just having netting back there, have this field level view or whatever. I think it's just atrocious. It's just like bar seating behind home plate, and it just looks bad. Everything about the Rangers' new ballpark is a downgrade compared to what they used to play in. Now, I know this new ballpark has air conditioning, which I'm sure is a godsend in the summer, but aesthetically speaking, everything is worse about this ballpark. The outfield, the backstop, everything. So Rangers, you get put in the bad category. Next up is the Seattle Mariners, T-Mobile Park. Full transparency, I'm going to be biased here because I'm a Mariners fan. I do like their backstop. I like how they incorporated brick into it for the 2019 season and beyond, because before it was just the very standard padding backstop like all the other like 2000s, late 90s stadiums. So I do think it was a big improvement. They have 2 digital ad spots. The crowd always is pretty decent. And yes, they also have the middle area where people can enter and exit, kind of like Colorado. But the difference is that they actually hold up people at T-Mobile Park for the half inning and they'll let people come back to their seats. So it's not as distracting. And again, I'm just biased. I watch every Mariner game, so I'm just used to looking at it. I like it. So I'm putting the Mariners in the good category. Next up is the Angels, and it's incredibly standard and basic for a renovated stadium from the 1960s. Now, I'm sure it's actually pretty nice sitting front row behind home plate there because you have a nice view of the field, but aesthetically speaking, it's very boring. It's just netting and padding. That's it. There's one digital ad spot that we can see there. Other than that, it's not all that great, but I don't think it's like awful either. So I do think the Angels is another team that just is going to go in the average category. Now, a little bit of a different wrinkle here. We have a screenshot of Sutter Health Field where the A's will be playing in Sacramento for the next 3 years. Now, for a minor league ballpark, I think this backstop is nice enough, even though the Sutter Health part where you can enter and exit off the field looks pretty beat up, which I don't think that'll be the case when the A's are playing here. They'll put everything up to a Major League standard. As much as I don't think it's all that bad, and I don't know what the improvements are going to be for 2025, I'm going to have to put it in the bad category because comparing it to Major League standards, as of right now with the screenshot, it's not all that great. First up for the AL Central is the Cleveland Guardians at Progressive Field, and this is another one kind of like the Angels. It's not all that great, but I do think this one is even worse because it's just nothing but padding. There's a little area where you can see, I think, grounds crew people or whatever kind of to the left, and the home plate seating is above all that padding, which again, I'm sure is a nice view if you're sitting there, but actually seeing it on TV, it's not all that great. It's pretty uninspiring. So even though it's very similar to some other ballparks, I'm gonna have to put Progressive Field in the bad category. It's just not my favorite. Now, Comerica Park for the Detroit Tigers is one that should be better than what it is. There's so much padding. The big doors behind home plate that open does not look great. Just a ton of ads everywhere, which is unfortunate because Comerica Park is a really nice ballpark. And if you incorporate some bricks, some slate, something behind home plate, it would really look really great. The doors behind home plate, just, I don't get what's going on there. Go in the bad category. Now, Guaranteed Rate Field for the Chicago White Sox is another one that just isn't great. Now, there's a small door here instead of the big double wide door like at the Tiger Stadium. It's just a lot of padding, a lot of ads, a decent look of the crowd from the broadcast angle we have here. But same time, is there anything inspiring or cool about this? I wouldn't even put it in the average category. I think I'm gonna have to put the White Sox in the bad category. The AL Central is not looking good right now. Now, Kauffman Stadium for the Kansas City Royals is a pretty decent backstop. Now, we do have slate of some sort. Again, I don't know what technical rock that is back there, but it looks good. There's 2 digital ad spots. The crowd looks decent. There's nothing too distracting. I'm a fan. So I'm going to put Kauffman Stadium in the good category. Now, rounding out the AL Central is Target Field for the Minnesota Twins. Now, this is going to be a little bit of a hot take here. I don't love their, whatever this is, slate or natural design they got going on at Target Field. I never really have, mainly due to the fact that as it's aged, it just looks dirty. Now, I don't know if it literally is just dirty and it needs to be cleaned, but it doesn't look as crisp as like a brick does or a particular type of slate, but it just hasn't aged great. But beyond that, you have 2 digital ad spots. The crowd looks fairly normal, but I'm going to have to put it in just the average category. It's not horrible yet, but if they don't kind of refresh it here soon, it will probably go in the bad category. But for now, the Twins, you go in the average. Now for the AL East, I have 2 spots for the Tampa Bay Rays. I have their normal ballpark at Tropicana Field, and I also have a screenshot from the Yankee spring training facility, which is where the Rays will be playing in 2025. Now, as the making of this video, I don't know if the Rays are ever going to go back to Tropicana Field, so that's why I want to just put it on the list, and I also want to feature the spring training area where they'll be playing in 2025. So Tropicana Field is just your basic backstop from the late 90s. Other than the coloring, it's never really changed over the years. There's just ads, there's padding, a little tiny door, and you can see some of the crowd. Nothing crazy, but in saying that, I'm going to have to put Tropicana Field in the bad category. I just don't think there's enough there to kind of save it. Now, since we're talking about the Rays, we're going to quickly talk about their new home for 2025. Now, as far as spring training, backstops, and ballparks go, guess this is good enough. There's a lot of ads, a lot of padding. You got the door behind home plate. It is what it is, so I'm going to have to put it in the bad category also. Next up is Yankee Stadium for the New York Yankees, and for all the great things the Yankees seem to do, their backstop is just not one of them. There's just a ton of padding, ton of ads. You put some like gray slate back there like how the Nationals have, and this looks awesome, especially with all the navy blue going on the Yankees always have, but as it sits right now, I don't think it's all that awesome. So shockingly enough, the Yankees, you go in the bad category. Now, Camden Yards for the Baltimore Orioles, I think is peak backstop. You see pretty much nothing but brick, which is awesome. Minimal ad space. You can see the crowd. Yes, it has like the gaping hole in the middle behind home plate with like the double doors that open, but it's not as distracting as like the Tigers. So with that said, I think we have our first great backstop. Now, the Toronto Blue Jays at the Rogers Center did a big renovation in 2024 where this is all new. The backstop's all new. It's all digital ads with minimal padding, all new luxury seats, and then there's like gray slate behind the luxury seats, and there's of course more seating. Now, I think this is an improvement from what they had before, because what they had before was like your standard 90s backstop and seating. So I would say this is an improvement, but for my personal taste, I just don't love this for whatever reason. It's just not really my favorite. So I don't think it's bad, but nor do I think it's good. So Blue Jays, you go right in the average category. Now, lastly is the Boston Red Sox. Now, I love the seating behind home plate with the old red seats, even though people are just crammed back there. I'm sure it's not the most comfortable thing, but it looks cool. And yes, there is a ton of padding behind there with a lot of ads, but I do appreciate how the green they use ties into the ballpark pretty well. So yes, I may be contradicting myself. I don't mind the Fenway backstop, so I'm going to put the Fenway backstop in the good category. Well, there you have it there, folks. That is my ranking of great, good, average, and bad backstops in Major League Baseball. Now, I know this list may be all over the place, but this is just kind of how I feel about it. It is just my personal opinions, my own subjective views on this, and yes, some may contradict one another, but oh well, everyone has their own opinions about this type of stuff, and I'm no different. So with that said, let me know your top backstops in Major League Baseball down in the comments below, and while you're down there, if you can like the video and subscribe to the channel, that'd be greatly appreciated. Until next time, guys, everyone have a great day. Thanks for watching.